The turquoise waters of Belleair Beach, Florida, have always been a haven of tranquility, a place where the sun kisses the sand and the gentle waves lull you into a state of blissful serenity. This stretch of Pinellas County coastline, characterized by its powdery white sands and the shimmering expanse of the Gulf of Mexico, was a postcard-perfect embodiment of the Florida dream. Homes, often pastel-hued and nestled amidst lush tropical foliage, dotted the landscape, their inhabitants drawn to the promise of peaceful living, the rhythmic ebb and flow of the tide a constant, calming presence. But on a seemingly ordinary day in 1972, this idyllic coastline became the silent witness to a horrific crime, a mystery that continues to haunt the shores and the collective memory of those who seek justice. Today, we delve into the chilling case of the Belleair Beach Jane Doe, a woman whose life was tragically cut short and whose identity remains shrouded in the mists of time. The story begins with a gruesome discovery that shattered the peaceful veneer of Belleair Beach. It was early spring, the air still carrying a hint of the cooler months, but warming towards the languid heat of summer. Fishermen, their weathered faces etched with the stories of countless sunrises over the water, were casting their lines into the Gulf of Mexico, a daily ritual as familiar as the tides themselves. Their routines, usually marked by the quiet anticipation of a catch and the camaraderie of fellow anglers, were abruptly interrupted by a sight that would forever scar their memories. Washed ashore, tangled in seaweed and driftwood, lay the lifeless body of a young woman. The initial shock of finding a deceased individual gave way to a profound horror as the full, brutal reality of the scene became apparent. The most shocking aspect of this grim find was the absence of her head, a calculated act that spoke volumes about the depravity of the killer and their calculated efforts to erase any trace of her identity. This was no accident. This was a deliberate, brutal silencing, a desecration designed to obliterate any possibility of recognition. The lack of identification, coupled with the brutal manner of death, immediately transformed this woman into a John Doe, an anonymous victim of violence lost to the sands of time. Her story is stark and terrifying enigma. Years passed, and the case of the Belleair Beach Jane Doe remained an open wound in the heart of the community. The lack of a name, a face, transformed her into a potent symbol of all the unsolved crimes and the forgotten victims whose stories fade from public consciousness. She became Belleair Beach Jane Doe, a moniker that encapsulated her anonymity and the enduring mystery surrounding her fate. As time marched on, the case file gathered dust in the archives, the hope of closure growing fainter with each passing year. The initial frantic search for answers gradually subsided into a quiet despair. Detectives who had worked the case moved on, their initial dedication often overshadowed by the sheer enormity of the task and the lack of tangible progress. Yet, the memory of the headless body on the beach persisted, a chilling reminder of the crime that had irrevocably altered the idyllic image of Belleair Beach. The advent of forensic science, however, began to offer new avenues of hope. The slow, deliberate march of technological advancement provided tools that were unimaginable in 1972. With the dawn of DNA technology, investigators finally possessed a potential key that could unlock the secrets of the past. The Belleair Beach Jane Doe's remains, preserved for decades, were re-examined with a renewed sense of purpose. Her DNA was painstakingly extracted, a microscopic fragment of her lost identity, and entered into national databases, a digital whisper reaching out across time. This marked the beginning of the era of genetic genealogy, a revolutionary approach to identifying unknown individuals. This cutting-edge methodology involved comparing their DNA profiles to those of distant relatives, not necessarily first or second cousins, but individuals who shared a common ancestor further back in time. By building extensive family trees, piecing together genealogical records, and painstakingly tracing lineages, investigators could eventually pinpoint a potential identity for the unknown victim. In the early 2000s, as DNA technology became more sophisticated and accessible, the case was taken up again with fresh vigor. Investigators, armed with the promise of genetic analysis, began testing samples from the Jane Doe. The hope was that a match, however distant, might emerge, a flicker of recognition in the vast sea of genetic data. The initial attempts, while thorough, proved to be futile. The DNA profiles, when compared against existing databases, did not yield. Leads were followed, theories were explored, but the case remained stubbornly cold, another haunting testament to the challenges of solving crimes from decades past. The lack of any immediate familial connections in the databases meant that the Jane Doe remained a ghost, her origins elusive. Then, in the late 2010s, a significant glimmer of hope surfaced, fueled by the persistent efforts of dedicated investigators and the evolving power of genetic genealogy. A new team, or perhaps the same dedicated souls with renewed determination, utilized the latest advancements in the field. They were able to construct a more robust and comprehensive family tree for the Belleair Beach Jane Doe, painstakingly sifting through vast amounts of genetic data. They identified potential living relatives, individuals whose DNA profiles showed a statistically significant overlap, suggesting a shared ancestral connection. This painstaking process, akin to assembling a colossal jigsaw puzzle across generations, allowed them to trace her ancestry and gradually narrow down possible leads. Through this meticulous genealogical detective work, a potential identification began to take shape. According to reports, the Jane Doe could potentially be a woman named Lila, who lived in or around the Midwest in the 1970s. The name, a soft echo from a life presumed lost, offered a tangible anchor to a human being. However, despite this significant progress, confirming her identity proved to be a complicated and time-consuming task. Genetic genealogy offers a strong probability, a roadmap, but the final confirmation often requires corroborating evidence, such as historical records, interviews with family members, or even dental records if they exist. As of today, the case remains officially unsolved. The full story of Lila and how she came to be a victim on a Florida beach, still waiting to be fully revealed. The failure to definitively solve the Belleair Beach Jane Doe case reflects the inherent limitations of the justice system, especially when coupled with the immense challenges presented by cases from the past. The passage of time erodes evidence, memory fades, and witnesses can disappear. It's a haunting case, a stark reminder of the gaps that can exist in our pursuit of truth, but also one that is part of a larger, pervasive problem within the justice system. The reality is that countless cases, both recent and historical, remain unsolved, their victims forever denied the justice and closure they deserve. There is a clear and persistent need for more resources, more funding, and an unwavering dedication from law enforcement agencies to address these cold cases, to ensure that the forgotten are never truly forgotten. Each unsolved case represents a failure, a silent testament to the human lives that have been tragically interrupted and whose stories have been left incomplete. In conclusion, the story of the Belleair Beach Jane Doe is a tragedy etched deeply into the fabric of our society. Her story, whether she was Lila or another lost soul, is a stark reminder of the brutal capacity for violence that exists within humanity, as well as the profound importance of never forgetting the missing and the enduring value of seeking justice. The lack of definitive answers and closure highlights the inherent flaws and challenges within our investigative systems and serves as a somber reminder that there are many stories, many lives, that have yet to be fully accounted for. Despite the relentless passage of time, the tireless efforts of those seeking answers, and the remarkable advancements of forensic technology, the identity of this Jane Doe continues to be a haunting mystery, an open wound in the heart of the community, and a silent, desperate plea for justice. As we stand on the sun-drenched sands of Belleair Beach, let us never forget the woman whose story deserves to be told in its entirety, a woman whose identity is still waiting to be unequivocally revealed, and a woman whose tragic fate demands resolution. The Belleair Beach Jane Doe is not just another cold case file. She is a human story, a poignant testament to the fragility of life and the enduring, often arduous, search for truth in the face of darkness.